Alright, hello everyone. This is Darky again, and as promised, I'm bringing to you another video. Um, this is going to be at the same time the Teambuilder video for my match against the Harrisburg Hydreigons, as well as the actual battle. I'm not going to spoil anything for the battle itself. I'll be showing it to you right after I've explained my picks and my brings for my battle versus the Hydreigons. And first, let's take a look at the team on the right over here. There's my team and theirs. As we've discussed previously, the Montreal Mawals, have the I have the Megalopony, Rotom Wash, Dragonite, Mamoswine, Whimsicott, Empoleon, Venusaur, Houndoom, Hoopa, Hariyama, Manectric, and Odino at my disposal. Now, the Harrisburg Hydreigons have the Latios, Mega Altaria, Weavile, Galvantula, Vaporeon, Shaymin, Rhyperior, Fletchinder, Gastrodon, Cryogonal, Ferroseed, and Buffalant. And a few things jump at me right at the start. For starters, Megalopony does a lot of work on this team, as it basically does against any team. However, three major threats stand in the way of Megalopony putting in a lot of work, and possibly four. And I'm going to break them down right away. First, I have to consider the possibility of my opponent bringing Galvantula to the team. Galvantula has access to the sticky webs, and as we all know, letting my opponent set up the webs means that my whole team is going to be to end up being one entire tier of speed slower. So with that drop in speed, Megalopony would be outsped by pretty much any of the fast mons on my opponent's team, including Latios, Mega Altaria, and Weavile. The next obvious threat would be Fletchinder. Fletchinder is an immediate threat to a lot of the Pokemon on my team. If I allow it to set up a simple Swords Dance, it can use acrobatics to kill Megalopony quite easily. It can kill Whimsicott, it can kill Venusaur, Hariyama, and can do a lot of damage to a lot of my other Pokemons, even Manectric, since it has such low deaths, and then the solid hit on Mamoswine, or maybe even Dragonite. Obviously, however, I have some of the better counters in the game for it. Those being Rotom Wash and Empoleon. Next, another danger for Megalopony is the Latios. Now I've been predicting my opponent to bring a Scarf Latios as their answer for a potential Megalopony. Obviously, I believe that Galvantula will be there. There's no way he's not bringing Galvantula, actually. But I still think they'll keep a Scarf Latios as their ace in order to kill Megalopony if they find themselves in a tough spot and unable to set up webs. Obviously, I'm going to bring at least one Pokemon that gets Defog in order to counter the potential webs. Last but not least, the next threat on my team, on Megalopony specifically, would be the Mega Altaria. Mega Altaria only needs to set up one Dragon Dance in order to take me down, and assuming I don't kill it first, it will kill me using either Hyper Voice if it's the special set, or Return if it's the physical set. Now, if it's going to outspeed me and set up, it's going to be a Dragon Dance set, and the Dragon Dancing set is a threat to not only Megalopony, but basically anything on my team, which is why I'll be working around that, as you'll see when I go over the Pokemon over here. Moving further along, Weavile basically hurts everything on my team, not named Megalopony, and Hariyama. It can pursue Trap Hoopa, it can do a lot of damage to either Venusaur or Houndoom. It can hit Empoleon for a bit of damage before I end up revenge killing it. It's super effective against Whimsicott, learns Low Kick for Mamoswine, and Odino. And it naturally outspeeds Manic Trick. So Weavile is definitely one of those Pokemon that I'm going to have to watch out for and bring a counter for. Now, if I'm going to be quite honest, I expect my opponent to bring Latios, Mega Altaria, Weavile, Galvantula, either Vaporeon or Shaymin, and then I'm expecting Rhyperior, but they could as well bring Fletchinder. So yeah, those are the predictions I'm going off of. Now that I've covered the main threats, basically let's move on to the team building. First, you'll see that I'm bringing Whimsicott. Now, Whimsicott is weak to both Weavile and the Fletchinder. However, there is a particular reason for me bringing it. Let's see. Haribel the Whimsicott has Prankster Life Orb, Moonblast, Giga Drain, Inkcore, Stun Spore, and max a simple sweeper set essentially, with max speed, timid, and the rest invested in special attack. I've ran a lot of cocks and determined that with Stab, Life Orb, Giga Drain, I should be able to one-hit KO Gastrodon and almost one-hit KO the Rindoberry set if he decides to bring it. I should be able to one-hit KO the Rhyperior provided it's not specially defensive. Moonblast does a ton of damage. Actually, it one-hit KOs Mega Altaria after Rocks provided it's not specially defensive. It one-hit KOs the Latios after Rocks, again, provided it's not specially offensive. Does a ton of damage on Vaporeon, can two-hit KO Galvantula, resists Shaymin, and does decent damage to Buffalant. I'm not expecting Cryogonal, Ferroseed, or Buffalant. Actually, Ferroseed is the Pokemon I least expect my opponent to bring. The reason for that being that Ferroseed itself does not match up particularly well against the most obvious brings. I'm sure my opponent is going to predict me to have Megalopony on my team, and probably Rotom Wash, Mamoswine, Empoleon, perhaps Venusaur. And these Pokemon all have a number of moves they can learn to really threaten the Ferroseed. Megalopony one-shots with just the high jump kick. Dragonite can learn Fire Punch. Venusaur usually runs Hidden Power Fire. Manic Trick learns Flamethrower. And Hariyama, which is my rather obvious Weavile counter, one-shots with just a close combat. So yeah, for the same reasons, I don't expect Cryogonal to come. Again, because Hariyama is assuredly coming. I don't really have a choice. It's otherwise my team is pretty weak to ice. Nevertheless, moving on. So yeah, I'm taking Inkcore in order to mess up with the setup sweepers, potentially screwing over Galvantula after it sets up web. Any shenanigans he might want to pull that I'm not necessarily going to see coming. Assuming he wants to defog, I might come in on it and then screw him over. Maybe screw over Vaporeon over some wish passing, Shaymin over some substitute shenanigans, Rhyperior after Rocks, Gastrodon if he wants to bring it, I'd be really surprised, but recover, stockpile, whichever. Whimsicott is just really great for countering possible setup sweeps. And along those lines, I gave it Stun Spore here in order to use its priority prankster to paralyze any mon that do manage to set up in my face and threaten the rest of my team. It's a pretty safe set overall, but I hope it will put in a lot of work. Here we have Mamori the Mamoswine, Expert Belt, 200 to 100, 4 HP, 252 attack, 4 def, it's adamant, and I gave it just enough speed to outspeed a Fletch with no speed investment. Fletch, and I think there was something else. No, it's Fletch. Since if my opponent does manage to set up with Fletch, I'll be able to outspeed and land at least the Ice Shard, and with the amount of priority I have on my team, I should be able to KO it before it does any significant damage, or at least before it completely wrecks my team. Using a combination of Ice Shard, Extreme Speed, and as we'll see later, Aqua Jet as well. Expert Belt means that the Ice Shard is going to do tons of damage against mons such as Latios, Mega Altaria, Shaman. It can do about 50% damage on Galvantula, I think, since I'm max attack. It really wrecks. Using Earthquake, I can basically wreck Rhyperior and 2 hits using the Expert Belt. And Fletchinder won't appreciate my knockoff at all either, provided it doesn't use the Flying Gem beforehand. And on the off chance that he brings Cryogonal, Mamoswine shuts it down completely. Now obviously Gastrodon and Ferroseed are a bit of a problem for it, and it cannot switch in to any of Mega Altaria's moves without being 2-hit KO'd. It can, however, live a low kick from Weavile, on which I'm banking on with the 204 HP. So yeah, Mamoswine threatens a lot of things on his team, and is just a powerhouse to begin with, and that explains the spot on the roster for this match. Next we've got Malevolence the Dragonite. I'm going for a bit of a gimmick set with the weakness policy, Dragon Dance, Extreme Speed, Dragon Claw, Ice Punch. The logic behind this is that I should be able to tank a nice move from Weavile and using the multi-scale and set up with a Dragon Dance on it. Assuming I do this, between the weakness policy and the Dragon Dance and rocks, Extreme Speed should KO the Weavile and allow me to do a lot of damage on the team. Using Ice Punch to kill either the Mega Altaria, the Latios with the Dragon Claws. Ice Punch allows me to hit Rhyperior for a lot of damage, Shaman as well, and yeah. It might not be the safest set since I'm going off of a lot of assumptions using this Dragonite set, but yeah, it's a risk I'm willing to take, because if it does work, it's going to rake in a lot of kills. And as I've said in my prior video, I'm really hoping to land numerous kills with Dragonite this season. Next we have Queenpin, the Empoleon, which seems to have a rather generic set. However, it does have the Aqua Jet, and I'll be covering that in just a second. It's a modest Pokemon, as you can see, despite it having Aqua Jet. And the logic behind this set is the following. I'm expecting my opponent to lead with Galvantula with the intention of pushing the webs as fast as they can. And knowing that, I intend to lead with this Empoleon right here. Now, it's not modest, excuse me, it's calm. So with this EV spread, Empoleon can live either a Volt Switch easily or a Thunder. And provided that my opponent understands that this Empoleon has Defog and is the reason I lead with it against the Kelvin Shula, I intend to take the Thunder, hit them with Scald, which under Torrent will allow me to then hit KO using the Aqua Jet before they get to set up in my face. This is a Empoleon made with the intention of shutting down webs and or Altaria, provided it's a special mon. Obviously can come in against other threats on my opponent's team, but those are the main ones. Ice Beam allows it to do a lot of damage on either Latios. I got it on Mega Altaria, Shaman if it wants to come in. Obviously Scald is going to destroy Rhyperior. It cannot hit Gastrodon if they bring that, but it can shut down Fletchinder completely. So yeah, Empoleon, definitely a good pick. Next we've got Bulma, the Hariyama. I'm running a bit of a standard set on it with the Assault Vest, 6 Fat to resist the ice moves from Weavile and potentially Cryogonal. Bullet Punch, Knockoff, Close Combat, and Heavy Slam to land a hit on an incoming Mega Altaria if it wants to do that. Knockoff is just always a good move to have on your team. Bullet Punch for priority, and or revenging against Altaria or Weavile for that matter. And the Close Combat, which is just generally my strongest stab move, and probably the move I'm most going to go for. EV spread is self-explanatory. A lot of defense in order to take Weavile on. A lot of HP, and stuck attack is going to land a smackdown on mostly anything on his team. My opponent doesn't really have any walls to speak of except for Rhyperior and a Bulky set for Shaman and Vaporeon respectively. Gastrodon can work, however their 4-time weakness to grass, which is a type that I have a lot of on my team between Venusaur and Whimsicott, and the grass mount on Empoleon, means that I should be covered as far as that's concerned. And now, last but not least, I'm bringing Ambulance, the Audino. Ambulance, the Audino has Wish. Not a lot of my Pokemon has access to reliable recovery, and I decided to bring Wish in order to heal the likes of Empoleon, maybe Dragonite if it doesn't, since it doesn't have Roost in this match, Mamoswine. So it's not strictly speaking a cleric. I give it maximum def again in order to counter the more prominent physical threats against my team. Protect Toxic, and I decided to give it Flamethrower. I figured on the off chance that he does decide to bring his Ferroseed, I'm going to have at least one Pokemon that can do something against it. Otherwise, they could come in against me and set up in my face, and I would be forced to switch out, as Ambulance cannot do anything against the Ferroseed. But that's really just a last resort scenario. I really don't expect the Ferroseed. And I don't expect the Bufalon either. It's very slow, and even after webs, Pokemon such as Megalopony and Dragonite and Rotom Watch, which are either flying or levitators, are going to outspeed it and wreck it, basically. Alright, so with that out of the way, let me full screen this screen, and let's move on to the battle. Now, as we can see, my predictions were completely off. My opponent brought Galvantula as expected, Mega Altaria again as expected, but they brought every other bring where basically the Pokemon I dismissed as being quite unlikely. Ferroseed in particular really surprised me. Gastrodon and Buffalon play off well one of the other. Buffalon has access to Sapsipper as an ability, I believe, which really works well with the Gastrodon. I'm not sure what set they have in mind for Gastrodon, but I do know that they sacrificed one of their RU picks in order to have one more PU picks in the form of Gastrodon and picking it before anyone else could lay claim on it. Lastly, they brought Cryogonal over Weavile. I'm not sure why. I have a lot more mons that can take on the Cryogonal over Weavile, and I know it makes for a decent Rapid Spinner, but I'm still not convinced. So yeah, I'll be post-commentating this match, and I hope you enjoy. Now, on the first turn, we end up with having Harabel versus the Galvantula. I know I mentioned earlier that I designed Empoleon with the intent of leading off with it against the Galvantula, but for some reason decided otherwise under the pressure of the actual match, and decided to lead with the Whimsicott, which is not ideal, but I figured Whimsicott could take one hit and hurt in return. And so I'll be going for the Moonblast on the switch to Ferroseed, which in retrospect is a bit obvious, but I figure my opponent knew that Whimsicott could effectively two-hit KO the it can two-hit KO and outspeed Webster the Galvantula, and with me having Empoleon in the back, that meant that I would be able to defog the webs easily enough, and decided to switch out. Now I'm forced to switch out myself. I can't do anything to this Pokemon, and end up sending Quinpin, expecting the Stealth Rocks, but they end up Thunder Waving me. Now, predicting the switch and threatening the Pokemon with the only mon I have in my team that has a fire move, I send out Ambulance, but they do the roll switch and send out Gastrodon. Now this is my lucky break, because I have Toxic, and Toxic completely shuts down Gastrodon. And they switch again, sending the not yet Mega Altaria. Lending the Toxic on Altaria sounds good and all, but if it has the natural cure ability, it can still switch out and get away with it. I switch out myself expecting the switch, but I end up taking the Hyper Voice in the face. Hyper Voice does a whopping 60% damage on my Mamoswine, and we're off to a bad start. Mamoswine is the Pokemon that can do the most damage on my opponent's team, and it's already down in the yellow. I threaten the enemy out with the Ice Shard, not taking any risks, and end up not doing much damage to the Ferroseed. My opponent then decides to go for the Gyro Ball on my Rocks, which I was predicting Rocks myself actually, and I end up dying. However, I do get Rock. I managed to surprise my opponent with a Flamethrower, but I do get Leech Seeded instead. Here, I decide to switch in my Empoleon, again expecting Rocks and maybe the chance to defog them before anything threatening could happen. My opponent then sends out Afromu, the Buffalon. In here, I'm expecting my opponent to go for the Head Charge, expecting my Dragonite. Since Dragonite is flying, it can evade the Earthquake, and I figured that it was not necessarily the most obvious place, and that I would go for the Scald, predicting my opponent's move. However, my opponent only straightly goes for the Earthquake, and this right here really threw me off. Empoleon was a really important Pokemon on the team, and losing it over in early over prediction really cost me. Um, now, I'm not sure if the opponent is choice bended. I am tempted to think it is, and so I send out the Dragonite, and I'm going to do an early setup and go for the Dragon Dance. Right here, I'm going to go for the Ice Punch, land the KO on the big threat that is Mega Altaria, and get this out of the way. And finally, we're down to 5-4. With his team generally intact, as Whimsicott took a bit of damage, and Odino is full thanks to Regenerator. Here comes Nigel, and I make another misplay by switching out to Buruma. After the Dragon Dance, Dragonite should have been able to KO Nigel the Ferroseed with the Ice Punch, I believe. However, I misplayed, sent out Hariyama, and they get to land the Thunder Wave on it. Plus, I get paralyzed, letting my opponent use the Stealth Rock, which means that Dragonite, when it comes back in, will lose its multi-scale. And so the whole point of trying to switch out in order to avoid losing multi-scale has been rendered null by my opponent using the Stealth Rocks here and landing the full para. Nevertheless, I do land the KO using close combat, Nigel goes down, and this thorn in my side finally goes down. Here I decide to preserve the Hariyama by switching in and sacking the now somewhat useless Dragonite, as it's going to die to an Ice Beam or an HP Ice if Galvantula has it. And it's not going to take down the Gastrodon before it hits it with the potential Ice Beam either. I figure since Dragonite has a lot of HP invested in it, the Head Charge is going to do a lot of damage in return to the Bouffalant, and it's a good Pokemon to sack. It ends up doing only 18% damage, however, which is not too good. Still, I send Ambulance knowing that I can tank this hit, go for the Wish, and take down a lot more of HP from this mammoth, basically, that's just wrecking through my team right now. It's tearing it apart, and I'll be going for the Protect next, just taking as much HP as I can. My opponent does a misplay, however, and instead of going for more attacks, decides to send in Webster, the Galvantula, instead of Webs. Now, seeing as the rest of my team is a lot slower, with the exception of Whimsicott, which gets KO'd by, which did not KO Bouffalant yet, and gets KO'd by Cryogonal. The only thing Whimsicott really threatened at this point was the Gastrodon, and it's going to outspeed it regardless of Webs. And in that regard, I thought the switch was somewhat weird. Still, this allows me to heal myself and land the Flamethrower on the Webster. This puts me in a really good position to just stall out, get some leftovers, tank some thunders. Thankfully, I do not get paralyzed throughout those thunders with the 30% chance. Still, now, seeing as the Bouffalant is down to 23% HP, I decide that, you know what, I'm going to protect here, tank some more leftovers, which thankfully have not been knocked off by anything yet. I'm not sure if anything on Steam could learn knockoff actually. In any case, I'll be taking this HP, switch out to Hariyama, letting it kill itself on it using the Head Charge, and gain some precious HP back with Ambulance using the Regenerator. Yeah, and at this point, the game is actually sealed. I know for a fact that unless Gastrodon has Toxic, it's not going to, unless either of their Pokemon actually, not just Gastrodon, but maybe Cryogonal as well. As long as neither of those have Toxic, they're not going to take down this Pokemon. Ambulance is just going to tank hits after hits after hits, as I'm just going to stand there and Toxic stall the shit out of them. Here my opponent goes for the Rapid Spin, which I thought was a bit weird. Maybe they had Sash on Gastrodon, but that would be very, very awkward. And unless they figured they would be switching in and out with the Cryogonal a lot, I don't really know what they were going for here. Had I been in their place, I would have really gone for any attack I could in order to take down this Odino. So I land the poison on it, and I go for the Wish. Now is the decisive moment. Does Gastrodon have Toxic? I switch out to Haribel, trying to scout what my opponent is going to go for. And they go for a Scald. Get the burn. Haribel gets the Wish back, and I just go for the Giga Drain. Giga Drain kills Slurp in just one hit. I have no idea what they were going for. I was really expecting my opponent to switch out and maybe try to take me on using the Cryogonal. But no, they decide to just let the Gastrodon die, and in comes the Cryogonal. It's Toxic. I'm going to sack off Haribel, not wanting to risk, not knowing how much special attack investment my opponent has. I'm just going to let Haribel die so I can better tank against it and avoid losing any unnecessary damage, HP that is, on the Odino. And from here on out, as you can expect, I'm just going to Toxic stall my opponent until they're in the red and land the KO with Flamethrower, putting me and the Montreal Mawiles at a very close 1-0 against my first week's opponent, and putting me in the running for the season with quite a good first week, all things considered. So yeah, here Jack Frost dies to the Flamethrower, and it is good game. It's been a great match, Jiggy. I think neither of us really predicted correctly what the other team would be bringing, and it really threw each of us off. I know for a fact that Jiggy was helped in his team building by a few other members of the league, and I'd like to make a shout out to London and I'd like to make a shout out to those of you who took a look at my team and helped me prep by battling with me, basically. So yeah, thank you for watching. This has been the first week of the SDL, and tune in next time for more SDL battles. Draft Pokemon, Montreal Mawile signing out.